Five.
No, it's still spinning. There we go.
Oh,
Now we are live.
if
Welcome, 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 everyone, to a brand new spanking show, the rebrand of Consciously Unmasked, sir. How are you?
yo, I'm great. What's really important, I think, is are we starting over from number one or is this number 11?
This is number one because I lost count.
Okay.
So I'm good.
It was 11. We were on, this would have been 11.
This would have been 11. So it's number one. But on that, sir, I bring you the Jason created, if by whiskey. Such a beautiful thing.
Where'd the music go? You muted it.
I
Shout
don't
out
know.
to
It must not have
Roman,
had the music.
the roaming
Shout out to who?
bandits, for the theme.
That's Roman's music, and it's
Yeah.
awesome. It's got this cool southwestern thing. When you threw that in there with the, I don't even know what they're called, but oh, it's awesome. Cool. Well, welcome everyone. We have a brand new show called If by Whiskey, sir. And
If
before
by
we start the
whiskey.
show, we definitely need to explain how this happened. So you and I have been brainstorming for about 2 days, and somehow you type three words together, if by whiskey, and something in me went just absolutely clicked. So I'd love for you to share how that inspiration came to you, sir.
Yeah, well, first I was just like throwing it out there. Like, do you like the name? Should we keep it? And you're just like, oh, I guess I could change it. And we just went down a rabbit hole of, yeah, like you said, 2 or 3 days back and forth trying to come up with a name that made sense. We had a couple decent ones, but finally I was just looking through different things. I was looking at logical fallacies. That's where I found this. So, if by whiskey, uh, it's kind of the art of saying everything and saying nothing at the same time, being in support of both sides of an issue. It's a weaselly thing that politicians do quite a bit.
Yeah. And it's funny because you can mask what side you're on by playing that game, right?
Yeah, and people still eat it up. That's the crazy thing.
They do, and they actually think that you actually have like a backbone. Oh my God, this guy
Yeah,
took a stand. So
yeah.
yeah,
You took
if you
both
want to kind of
stands, but you know that should get you more votes, right? If you side with both sides, you should get all the votes.
yeah. So this if by whiskey idea, it's basically off this speech, right? Once again, is 1952, was it? I
Yeah,
believe. Okay. If you like
1952.
to, yeah, if you like to give us a little bit about that explanation about that speech, Jason, I'd love to hear about it.
So there's this Mississippi state representative, and in 1952, if you guys remember about prohibition, nationally that ended in 1933, but Mississippi was one of the last states to still be a dry state. So this young kid, I think he was 28 at the time, Noah Soggy Sweat Jr. He gave a speech that is just has become it was so good that the name of it became synonymous with this logical fallacy. Um, and it's called If by Whiskey, of course. It masterfully dodges divisive issues. In this case, it was alcohol prohibition. Um, so he got the people that were for prohibition to clap for him, and then he got the people that were against it to give him a round of applause. And how did he do it? Well, we're going to be exploring some of those things. We're going to look at the speech, actually, a reenactment of it, but um, the origins, break down what it means. Does it actually work? What does it teach us about politics and persuasion today? Any thoughts?
100%, sir. Totally on board with that. So thank you for sharing that. So basically, the if by whiskey speech, it basically takes both sides and it makes the guy look like an absolute genius. And what one of the things that I don't know if you thought about, because I always like to think, okay, which one do you use first? Do you take the side that you're on, or do you take the side that you're against, right?
Mm,
And it questions are like the recency fallacy, the primacy, right? Primacy is the first thing you hear, recency is the
mhm.
last thing you hear. So like which one do you battle with and how do you play with this if by whiskey concept? It's kind of fun. And then we'll talk about some of the we'll show some of these weird places where it takes place. And then we'll also show like some topics where it would really work really well for some people. So it's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, it's
So
really an eloquent way of saying there are fine people on both sides. That's really it.
yes, it literally is like saying find people on both sides. That is a
Yeah,
perfect analogy for that.
yeah.
Just Trump's not really good at doing that. He just kind of fumbles over his words and then talks through them. Right.
And I'm not talking about the white supremacists.
Yes. Find people on both sides. So before we do launch, I have there's a couple wins that happened this week, and I am uber excited to share this. Zach's online. Welcome, Zach. How's everybody doing, Zach? Thank you so much. So one of the wins is this. I was on this thing. I got an email last year, and it was from this group called FeedSpot, and it looks like it's a podcast collection website or something. And what I found out that I was on number 39 on a list of 80 top inappropriate podcasts.
Are you inappropriate?
Yeah. Oh, I wonder fucking why. Yeah, I wonder why. So I'm inappropriate. And then I didn't really give it much mind. I was really excited to see that. I didn't even know, but there's the website, everybody, if you happen to take a look. But lo and behold, I got another email this week, and I'm not gonna lie, we're relaunching today. And in the beginning, like 2 weeks ago, I almost was like gonna stop doing it because I was kind of not losing interest. Like what we've resparked is like the interest that I'm having is like all different topics, nothing too serious, but also talking about serious stuff. And
Hmm.
I just kind of that thing is like the consciously unmasked name didn't feel like it just felt weird. Like you were talking about, like we're all kind of feeling the same thing as something was off. And then
Mm.
come with the idea name change. And then I get this email. If you go on this website, I don't know how, I don't know why, but I am number 3 on this list now from 39. I moved up 36 spots. So I emailed the guy, and the guy just said it's some kind of collection of number of downloads or anything. So I'm hoping we can continue the momentum. I want to thank you, Jason, because I can guarantee the last 2 months or the last 3 months how much content we've made just alone in the last 3 months, just the two of us with the friends, you and I individually, just being on each other's shows, like doing all that other stuff. So I just want to thank you, but I want to thank everyone else who's just given us a watch and a listen. I mean, I'm just absolutely honored. So thank you so much for uh, having us
Thank you
move
for
up
your
that.
lapse of judgment by watching our show. Appreciate it.
Yes, and I hope we become more and more inappropriate as we speak. So,
Very.
all right, sir, are you ready for this
Oh, that's
crazy
really cool,
story, my
man. And
friend?
by the way, he's right above Michelle Obama and Gavin Newsom. So congratulations on that.
That would be great. Are they actually on there?
No, no, no.
That'd be hilarious. I am above Howie Mandel. I can tell you that.
All
Howie
right.
Mandel was like number 1 or 2. When I was even on the list, I was like, no way. What am I doing on this thing? I still have no clue. So
Does
let's keep in
everyone
mind
have
on.
a podcast? Like, I feel like every celebrity now, they have to.
They have to. Yeah, we should talk about the Gavin and Michelle one, but it's so bad. I don't think we need to talk about airline reclining. Like how if we should recline on commercial airlines, Michelle Obama, who's flown on Air Force One
That's an
for her entire
important,
and probably
important
first
topic.
class. So, all right.
Don't ask.
So the second thing this weekend, are you ready for this craziness, my friend? It's so weird.
Wait, I'm
I've
not ready. Hold on. Okay, go.
okay. So it's crazy town. I have to tell you this because what I've been doing is I've been saying yes more and more often, right? I've been making sure that I say yes to almost every opportunity. Okay. So I've been engaging a lot on X and the Boomer social network, otherwise known as Facebook. And I've been sharing with you guys a lot of the comments that I've been getting from people. And it's been pretty fun. However, I get a comment from a woman on Friday morning or early afternoon, and she writes something, and I'm like, oh, okay, something. And then she comments on about Dave Smith, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, Dave Smith, that'll work. She's like, at least listens to Dave Smith. That's a good start, right? So
Hmm.
I get this message out of the blue. You know how Facebook just pings? This woman, Laura, pings, goes, I don't know why we're Facebook friends, Mark, but based on the podcast I heard today, you're from Arizona. You seem well versed in political learnings leanings of geography here. Anywho, you seem cool. And if you were in Arizona, my husband and I are having a house concert party tomorrow, and I think you and your girlfriend should come. Shane
Hmm.
Britt from the Coltrane is having his album release. Drew Cooper, several other Arizona people are playing. Look them up if you don't know them. Cool shit. If you're interested, we'll send you the event page. Cheers.
Wow.
Completely
Okay.
unsolicited, out of the blue invitation to a backyard album release party. Okay. So what do? I click on Laura's page. It looks legit, looks kind of cool. But I have to look these people up. Like, I've never seen something like this before, right? I've never been privy to something like this. So I end up going through, and something she said, I said, oh, you know what? Let's just go. But I remember when we were getting dressed, I'm like, to my girlfriend, I go, put on socks and closed-toed shoes, because this might be one of those hunting game type things where we might have to run for our lives. So I just
The
want to
most
make sure that we're
dangerous. Yeah.
prepared, right?
Yeah.
So we drive out to Gilbert. It's Gilbert. It's out in Gilbert area, and we drive out there. And I was going to mention you, but it was like I just got this invitation, so I didn't want to feel like too forward. Like I didn't want to like be like greedy. So go up to the house. We go in. Laura's right there. She's like, "Oh my gosh, Mark." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, hi." So she meets my girlfriend, and they strike it off like nothing. They just talking like nothing's ever happened. Like they've been friends forever, and they were the kindest thing. Amazing acoustic guitar. Let me read off the names if I may, because I want to make sure that I honor the right people that were here. But basically, I want to thank you again, Laura, for inviting us to your home. Um, the funny story was when she pulled me aside. She goes, I wasn't sure, but then you mentioned your girlfriend on the podcast. I knew you were okay. And I said, cool. I wasn't going to mention Jason, but Jason's married. So he's even better than I am. He's even like more on board, because I think you would have really enjoyed this. Like I was like
Mm.
thinking like this is something for you, right? So the people that were there, Austin B. Sweeney, Jackson Republic, Drew Cooper, TJ Taylor, JD Graham, Shane Britt, who's it was his album release party. And then Tall Paul is Laura's husband. And they have a duo called the Pompous Beggars. And there's a band they also have called the Lewinsky's, and they do 90s country covers. And it's so fucking fun, she says.
Hmm.
So, Laura, thank you again for that invitation. It was the funnest thing. Like, I cannot tell you that saying yes has been a cool thing to do lately, and I'm going to continue doing it. So, I hope to bring you along next time, man, because I think you would have really enjoyed it, and it's kind of halfway to you because it's in
Yeah.
Gilbert, so it's all the way out there.
Out in the boonies out here. Yeah.
Anyway,
That's awesome, man. I
yeah.
don't know who any of those people are, but sounds great.
You know what? They all seem to be
To be
Arizona
honest, I
locals, and
probably
a lot
would
of
have
them
said
have like
no.
Roger Klein
I'm just,
t-shirts on. Oop. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think we got out of sync there, but yeah, probably would have said no. I'd be like, nah, I just want to stay home. That would have been my thing. So that's awesome. You said yes.
I admit I hemmed and hawed. I'm not gonna lie, but you know what? It's kind of. I think it comes part and parcel with trying to do this. Is like if we're gonna put ourselves out there, if someone's gonna give the energy to invite someone somewhere, you know what? Maybe I should at least consider it. So I at least want to say if I said yes, I was gonna go. So I said yes, and so we did it.
Zach wants
It
to come.
sounds like Zach wants to join us.
Yeah.
So.
You can have my
All right, my friend.
invitation, Zach.
Yeah. So is there a sync issue? Something going on? There's like we're clicking out here. Do you want me to hit the speech itself, or where would you like to go with this, sir?
Before we get back to that, did you want to talk about the RFK stuff?
Okay, we'll talk about it now. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So if I can tell you that in corporate legacy dinosaur media, it's not really being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But Candace Owens has a bone. And when Candace Owens has a bone, she does not let go. Once again, it's got to be Shmuley. I mean, definitely, because there's some kind of connection there. But anyway, Candace Owens is back in with Ian Carroll. You shared this amazing 9-minute video before the weekend. Do you want to tell me how you came across that?
No, you shared it. You're mistaken.
I shared it with you?
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Okay. Well, someone shared it with me. So I don't even know how that happened. Okay. So it's a 9-minute video of Ian Carroll basically talking about Candace Owens exposing RFK Jr.'s blackmail, some blackmail that he's under. And we wonder who the blackmail's from. Dun, 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 right? What a shock. Now, what's interesting is he's killed his ex-wife by writing down all his sexual exploits. She committed suicide, right? He like drove her to insanity. He openly talks about his drug use. He had a whale carcass in his car. He's had a bear on a bicycle. He's cheated on what's her face this fucking election cycle on Cheryl, this election cycle with that nuzzy lady. Okay. What could possibly he have blackmail for, Jason?
There are very few things that I can think of that would actually damage him at all, because like you said, he's had all these things. He's gone against the pharmaceutical companies publicly. Obviously, that's a big no-no in politics. The COVID-19 stuff, he's railed against that. Assassination theories against his dad and his uncle. Just openly calling out the CIA. I mean, this guy's messed with all the big players in the game already. So what's
and the
left?
EPA, remember, he took on the big companies about the paint in the ocean, like in the water. So you're right. He take on every industry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's going to damage him? There are very, very few things. I mean, you can probably use your imagination, come up with, some underage nonsense, some shenanigans there, like some human sacrifice, some weird, like crazy violent stuff against a human, because he's already done animals. So, yeah, I think, can you think of anything else? I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned the sacrifice to me, and I didn't even think about it. But the second you mentioned it, I'm like, oh, that's it. It's just weird because it's RFK. You know what I mean? He's such a
Yeah.
psychopath.
He's out in the
Yeah.
Bohemian Grove doing the
Well,
child
this is I'm
sacrifice.
like, it's got to be age. It's got to be even one at 17 years and 51 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the most likely thing is that the second
Was
would
he
be
on?
boys included.
Was
Like
he
it would be
homies
on
with
some boys.
Epstein? I don't even know.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know the thing with that, but what's her Candace has been talking about his relation with Shmuley. And we all know about Rabbi Shmuley and how
Mhm.
absolutely perverted that disgusting pig is. And I'm sure he'll try to sue me for defamation because calling a single individual disgusting pig is anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Well, we all saw
Yeah.
on Dave Smith's show, part of the problem, that question and the pause, where Dave's like, "Do
That
you
I
think
should have
Israel has
queued that
too
up.
much control over our government?" Pause. 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 I don't know. That was.
It was did he have an earpiece? Did he have somebody on the side
I
waving?
don't know, man.
It seemed like it was not a delay like on a podcast delay. It was a wait.
Mhm.
He counted to 5.
There were things
Like
going on in his head that he wanted to say, but he couldn't say.
he
5.
absolutely. And it's like you look at him and you're like, you watch him on Ukraine and you go, he's dead on Ukraine. And then you look at Israel and you're like, not only is he like off here and there, he's 180 degrees incorrect. You know what I mean? It's like you couldn't be more anyone with any sane feelings that has the same feelings about Ukraine cannot without unless there's an ideological input cannot feel it differently about the other situation. Just can't. Absolutely not. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm afraid it's going to be an age thing. But your sacrifice thing makes I mean, he wasn't in like jungles and shit and eating like just doing all crazy stuff, rituals and
He used to do
yeah.
heroin. I mean,
What I mean, it could be murder, right? He could have murdered somebody, but like I feel like the blackmails where they have video and like a lot of like capture, not just him shooting a guy or something. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
he
I'm a
also
little
joined
concerned.
he joined Donald Trump's team, so that's like the biggest sin you can commit in the
Yeah,
liberal world order. That's the worst thing you can do. So what else could
pretty
it be?
crazy.
That's why when I heard this, I'm like, okay, it sounds like fake news. And he said, Ian Carroll said that something was dropping this weekend, and it hasn't.
It didn't. But when you say fake news, like, then why is he acting the way he is? Like, if there isn't anything to the story, right? Like,
Well, yeah, Israel has their claws in him for sure, but
yeah. So
maybe he actually agrees with them. Maybe he's friends with that Shmuley dude. He's just friends with the people that tell him what they want him to believe, and he believes it. Maybe that's it, but I don't know.
yeah. So do you know anything about the Shmuley guy with Michael Jackson? Because Candace Owens brought up something about Michael Jackson talking shit about Shmuley. So I did a,
Mm,
web search, Michael Jackson, Shmuley. Allegedly, they were real friends. And Shmuley like came to Michael Jackson's defense all the time. And I'm like, that makes, because I'm like a Michael Jackson guy who went from thinking he did to not thinking he did. And I think Candace is on the side that Michael Jackson didn't do it either. So like,
mm.
what's the connection with Shmuley? So it's kind of funky now. So I went down a new rabbit hole
I have
for
not
that.
heard that one. I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that one next. But oh, what
Hmm.
what do we have here? Oh God.
Malay will be releasing files linking Nazis, including Hitler, being in Argentina. Still, guy's got to be like 120 at this point.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of the RFK thing, did you see the new Candace one? The new Candace Owens?
No.
It's awesome. It's about Sirhan, the guy who, like, one of the witnesses who's trying to get him out of jail now. He's 91 years old. And
Mm,
he's basically changing his whole story, saying, I'm sorry that I did this to you, Sirhan. It wasn't you, and all this stuff.
what?
Yeah.
I'm
So are
lost.
you familiar with Sirhan?
No.
Okay, so Robert Kennedy's dad, RFK Sr.,
Hmm.
when he was walked off the stage, they shuffle him off the stage to go back into the into like through the kitchen, right? He gets pushed and actually gets nudged in a different direction to go another way. And that's when gunshots go off and Kennedy gets shot and killed within a day. Robert
Mm,
Sr. Well, Sirhan was in front facing Kennedy, and all of Kennedy's shots were in the back of the head.
mm.
Ta-da! He
Magic.
he only had a gun that could hold 8 bullets, but there were 13 shots, and there were 13 casings or something. So there's a whole like he didn't have time to reload. There's a whole like thing that goes into it. Like Candace just did it. But once again,
Sounds
this
like a
is
case of the suicide to me.
it's the biggest suicide I've ever seen.
Hmm.
He hired all these actors, like The Game. You ever see that game, the movie The Game with Michael Douglas and Sean Penn?
No.
Highly recommended. I think you'd really
I know
enjoy it.
nothing. You shouldn't ask me these questions. I don't know
Oh man,
any
I
movies
feel
or
like you
any
know
people.
everything. So yeah,
No,
so
I know
anyway,
like a
so
very few
Kennedy's
specific
dad,
things.
yeah, so Kennedy's dad basically like, so to watch him kowtow to that, it's like what? They're holding a gun to his head. They've always held a gun to his head, like pretty
Yeah.
much. So I'm really curious if something breaks. I'm curious if it does break.
What do you think of the overall situation with Trump and Kennedy trying to, you know, make government more efficient, make people healthier and all this stuff? Do you think it's for real? Like, are the people that are in charge actually letting them do it?
You're asking a really good question. I hate to say it's all a psyop, but the Doge thing is a really good distraction while we're moving 3 fucking Navy fleets into Iran. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to talk, like, to have Elon be an enemy right now. It's like when John Bolton existed, I think Trump even said, he's like, I like that John Bolton was there because he deflected a lot of my heat.
Hmm.
Is anybody really yelling at Trump about tariffs? No, they're yelling at Elon about Doge.
Yeah.
So at worst, it's a good distraction for people. But to think, let's you and I be honest. What do they need to cut? They need to cut the military just in half, just to start, just as a starting point, is to have it. That's like that's only a starting point. That only takes what 400 billion out, something like that a year. That's like nothing. At 450 maybe. So right there, it just has to happen. They're not going to do that. You and I know they're not going to do that. They're ramping up for war. So then
Yeah.
Maha, Kennedy, one more point. Kennedy, one of his first acts is calling anti-Semitism a health crisis. Come on, man. Like that's what you're focusing on. That's not making us healthy, you know? So anyway, what
Well,
are
if
your
we all just
thoughts?
ate kosher, then we'd be fine.
Well, it has to get blessed by a rabbi then. That's a whole other.
Yeah.
You want to hear that
Yeah.
racket? You want to hear that racket on Passover? So on Passover, rabbis are allowed to marry and have children. Okay. The entire family's blessed on Passover. So the rabbi, the daughters, the sons, the wife, they can all go to individual catering companies and get paid money to sit there and do nothing while you prepare food just so they can say it's kosher for Passover.
Sounds like a
It's
good
a
gig.
racket. Oh yeah, it's one of
Yeah.
the best. It's like any other religion, man. It's ka-ching, ka-ching. So that's why they allowed to have a wife and kids so they could really maximize that profit.
Yeah. But yeah, on the cutting government thing, I think they're more than happy to cut these federal workers who don't really do anything. That are just bureaucrats sitting up there, but they will not cut the military. That's for sure.
Right. And in
Yeah.
addition, how many jobs were added in the government over these last 4 years? Those
Mm.
those employee numbers were packed with useless filler government bullshit jobs. Absolutely. Now, I don't know if those are the ones being cut, okay? And I'd rather overcut than undercut and work it back. Let's not that's how I'd rather be, but I don't want any of it, to be honest, you know?
Yeah, I would cut the whole thing. Cut it all.
Yeah. So do you think it is more just like a general distraction?
Yes. Also, I think they're okay with government being more efficient because then they have more money to spend on the shit that they want to do rather than paying salaries of people that just sit there, don't
Right.
even come into
So
work.
what was your when they initially said, "Oh, we're going to cut you all a check back."
Yeah.
What was your initial knee jerk is like, well, we're fucking drowning anyway. You might as well give me the money. Or is like,
Yeah.
can we apply that to just our debt and maybe buy
No, I
some
don't want to
down?
pay the debt. Fuck the debt. I want to
You
default.
wanted the paycheck?
Yeah, give me the money.
Uh,
I can use it better.
Jason's a liar.
I'll
Everybody's not a libertarian,
single-handedly save
everybody.
the economy with $5,000.
All right. Okay. Any more thoughts on RFK? Because I have one more question for you before we do move on for sure.
No. Just want to mention his brainworm as well. I think we missed that one.
That might be it. Shmuley the brainworm.
He has a brainworm that ate a six-sided star into his brain.
Oh my god, that's the next meme. Is gonna be RFK's brain with a freaking Star and David eating out of it, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we've just got the next
Uh,
meme. I've never made a meme, so maybe that'll be the first one.
there it
That's
is.
hilarious. So before we do move on, because it kind of all wraps up, what do they have on Tulsi?
Hmm.
What happened to Trump? Yemen shouldn't do it. This is awful. Syria, we shouldn't be anything. What can you explain? What are your thoughts on what happened?
Yeah, I think you're referring to the leaked signal chat that came out.
Well, yeah, but Tulsi's 180. She was not in. She was
Mm.
not for bombing Yemen. How come JD Vance was the only one who had any like nudge saying, "Hey guys, is this even in our interest?" Like he wasn't even fighting it. He was that
Mhm.
kid. You know how you have a gang of kids and the kid doesn't want to do it at all, but he just can't say it. So he has to kind of say it half like, "Hey guys, are you sure you guys want to do this?" That was
Yeah.
JD Vance in that signal chat. And they're like,
Yeah.
fuck yes, we want to do it. JD, shut the fuck up.
Oh
And he's
yeah,
like,
America.
all right, let's do it. Yeah, you're right. Let's get him, guys. So that's what it felt like. What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I think she's been full of shit, man. Uh, yeah, she kind of comes in anti-war, but remember, she's been a Democrat the whole time. Like, she never really changed on that. She's been in the military, so she has some like reverence for the institution of the military. I think that, just also like you follow orders, I guess. Like, I really don't understand this because I would not be able to do it. Like, if I had that position where I reported to the president says, go do this fucked up shit, I would say no. Like, I can't, no, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
100%. 100%. I just found it odd because she spoke so vehemently against specifically Syria, specifically Yemen, specifically used her story of going into Iraq in 9/11 and why it's wrong that we're in these places. And now
there's
it's
this
like, fucking let's go, bitches. Bomb, bomb, firecracker, whatever. High five, American flag, fist bump.
there's this idea that I hear from conservatives a lot is like, oh yeah, well they know things like that we're not allowed to know as the public, you know, like the government once they get in there, they actually see all the classified information and everything, so they know, and then oh, they realize, okay, we actually do have to do this, which has always felt like a bullshit excuse to me, just supporting the government because they said so. Like, no, not for me. But maybe she found out some information where she's like, okay, we actually do have to do this. Is there any
Oh, I lost you for a little bit.
hello?
Hold on. We cut out for a little bit. Okay. So are you there?
Yeah,
You good? Okay.
I'm good.
Um,
Yeah, you
okay, so
froze
you're
for a
saying,
minute.
yeah, you were talking about Tulsi, right? That last section. Could you repeat that last section is where you froze out, sir?
Is it possible that she got in there, she heard some classified information that was real, and she decided, okay, this actually does need to be done? Is that a possibility?
I do think it is a possibility, but it feels like some of these specific politicians, I think Tulsi's one of them, like they'd be transparent as to their change of heart. Like they'd be
Mm,
like, yes, I did feel like Yemen wasn't a problem, but I was just given some new information that's classified. Unfortunately, I can't share that, but it's changed my thought on Yemen.
mm,
I mean, is that hard to do that when you like you've the thing is you've built it's hard to build political credibility nowadays because
yeah,
Bernie's a little cuck now, right? Like look at Bernie and AOC. You're like, who the fuck are these people that was Bernie? That's not whatever, right? Like it's confusing. So, but like a Tulsi, it's like coming back with humility. Like Tucker Carlson is not good or bad because he believes I like what he believes. I like
mhm,
why Tucker Carlson has my admiration is he goes, I was wrong before. I was lied to and I had to do my own research to figure out the truth. And that's what I'm seeking. And if it changes, then I'll change my mind. And I think people would give so much more grace if someone did that, came from that
yeah.
side of, yeah, Yemen's a lot more tricky than I thought. You know what? It is a lot more dire. We do need to go in there. But killing one,
You're also
the head
fighting like,
rocket guy.
yeah, you're also got this entrenched just institutional power within the military that you've got to battle too. So they're probably all on board for continuing the violence, continuing the wars
All we have are
because hey,
hammers. What are we gonna do?
it's job security. Yeah, we've got this big military. We got to use it. Can't just sit there.
Can't just sit there. Can't let it atrophy. We got a war to fight.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sustained.
But yeah, the way they were talking on that chat, it's just like they didn't even need to do this. They were saying that we're bailing out Europe. It wasn't for
Right,
us. It wasn't for America's national interest.
right.
Just
And to be clear, I don't want to get into the politics specifically of it. However, it was only about 3% of our waterways. Israel's getting attacked. Why they are attacking is because allegedly Israel broke the ceasefire, not because Gaza or not because Hamas did. Houthis are the poorest freaking country in the poorest region in the world, okay? And not the oil part. We're talking about the people are absolutely dirt poor, okay? None of
mhm,
those people have any of that wealth. And to think that they would fight because they have to fight. It's actually a principled fight that they're fighting. You can disagree with their principles. You can disagree all you want, but to act like they are not fighting for a principle because it's actually they are poor. They have nothing.
mhm.
It's so why can we not just take a step back and go, what are we doing this for? Who are we doing this for? To get the head rocket guy? Oh yeah, let's wait till he walks into his girlfriend's apartment and then just level the fucking apartment. That seems like very tactical. very smart, sharp tactics. Like, it's so frustrating because we have these amazing tools that we can't even use to that extent. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man, that's about the extent of my knowledge on the whole situation over there. So I'm
Yeah,
not going to
that's all
get
we
too
need.
into it, but it just seems like, uh, yeah, the big giant taking on the little guy, and the giant's just crushing everybody. And for what? Like, really? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, "Hey, Iran, stay out of the way while we stomp on all your little friends." And
Yeah.
you're like, they're literally like, "Okay, we've been staying out pretty much this whole time." Let's be honest, you haven't heard much from Iran. I mean, there's going to be a false flag. Do you think a false flag event's going to happen? Is that what's going to pull? They're going to pull us in. Something will happen.
Yeah. I think the whole thing is a false flag. Everything they do,
Well,
everything
I
over
feel like no, it's a good point. I feel like we're just pushing on them till they strike back and go, see, they struck at us. See, that's what happens. It's
there.
like
Right.
taking an animal, right, and cornering it, and then it lashes out at
Mhm.
you, and you're like, it's one of those dangerous animals again.
Let's go arm these terrorists. Oh, they attacked us too. Oh, here we go. Let's arm a new set of terrorists to fight
And then
them.
let's go back to Japan, right? That eight page or that 8-point bulletin point to starve Japan of oil, so they have to do something because they literally are dying. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, my friend. I think we've beaten that horse.
It's all crazy. It's all crazy.
Well, if by Yemen you mean the country that has really poor people in it, then I'm all for it. But if you mean Yemen, the country that has the terrorists, then I am for sure against it, sir.
Exactly. Exactly. Great example of an if by whiskey statement.
All right, man, where are we at?
Where do we go with this?
Uh,
So, do you want to play the speech? So, we'll get back to it. Again, this
yeah.
was Noah Sweat, at the time a 28-year-old politician, a state senator, state representative, and he was asked about prohibition because at the time in Mississippi, they were trying, it was a hot button issue. They were trying to get rid of it. I think they finally did around 1966. So, this is still
I
14
looked
years before that.
I looked that up and I was telling my girlfriend that they didn't stop prohibition until 1966.
Yeah.
How crazy. And it ended nationally in
Mark was
33.
alive then.
States' rights, everybody. States' rights. That's what we got to say to that, right?
Yeah.
Who cares? That would be cool if there's a dry state. I wouldn't care. I just wouldn't live there, but fine. Whatever.
If that's what they want, sure.
Exactly. That's what it is. Once again, we talk about 1913 being the worst year ever. So, all right, my friend, here we go.
My friends, I had not intended to discuss this controversial issue at this particular time. However, I want you to know that I do not shun controversy. On the contrary, I will take a stand on any issue at any time, regardless of how fraught with controversy it might be. You have asked me how I feel about whiskey. All right, here's how I feel about whiskey. If, when you say whiskey, you mean the devil's brew, the poison scourge, the bloody monster that defiles innocence, dethrones reason, destroys homes, creates misery and poverty, yea, literally takes the bread from the mouths of little children. If you mean the evil drink that topples Christian man and woman from the pinnacle of righteous, gracious living into the bottomless pit of degradation and despair and shame and helplessness and hopelessness, then I certainly am against it. But if when you say whiskey, you mean the oil of conversation, the philosophic wine, the ale that is consumed when good fellows get together, that puts a song in their hearts and laughter on their lips and the warm glow of contentment in their eyes, if you mean Christmas cheer, if you mean that stimulating drink that puts a spring in the old step on a frosty, crispy morning, if you mean that drink which enables a man to magnify his joy and happiness and to forget, if only for a little while, all of life's great tragedies and heartaches and sorrows. If you mean that drink, the sale of which pours into our treasuries untold millions of dollars, which are used to provide tender care for our little crippled children, our blind, our deaf, our dumb, our pitiful aged and infirm, to build highways and hospitals and schools, then certainly I am for it.
The roads.
This
The
is
roads.
my stand. I will not retreat from it, and I will not compromise.
I will not retreat from it, as his whole speech is a retreat. That's hilarious.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah.
Oh man, and when you said it, like I said, it's like something clicked when you mentioned If by Whiskey, man, and it really is. This is such a perfect name for one of these shows, and then you looked it up, and there wasn't really anything about it. It was kind of weird.
Yeah. If by Israel, you mean
The oppressed people, the children of Moses who went through the desert for 40 years straight from the Egyptians who ran from the Nazis in the 30s and the 40s. If you mean by those Israelis, then I am most certainly for them.
that was beautiful. Beautiful.
I won't do the against because then I'll just be an anti-Semite again.
Yeah, someone's gonna clip it out, make you look crazy.
I'm just gonna leave it there.
Yeah. So the first half, he's saying all the things that are just horrible. Oh, whiskey's the worst thing. It ruins people's lives. But think of the children. And then the second half, complete opposite. You know, in the same minute, he's talking about how bad it is and then how great it is. And then you know, he's like, this is my stand. I'm not gonna back away from it. It's kind of genius. It's just kind of like poking fun at the whole thing. Like, it's kind of one of those times where you just, you know, the facade drops and you just see how ridiculous the whole thing is. That's what I think of politics.
Yeah, it's all doublespeak, and
Yeah.
and it's funny because we've got like 3 really short examples of these if by whiskeys in real life, but it's like you don't even realize some of these spots where you have it. And sometimes you only say the one half because you're against it, but you're not going to really say you're against it. You're just going to kind of make a little bit of a point, right?
Yeah.
And which one do you choose? Would you, if you were doing an If by Whiskey speech, would you choose your actual stance? Would you make that your first part or your second part?
It's a good question. I'd probably make it the second part because
I would do the
you got the
same.
recency bias. You can get the bullshit out of the way, and then you can say what you actually think. This is kind of like putting a caveat before you say something. Like, oh yeah, of course I like these people, but, and then everything you said before the word "but" doesn't count, right?
If by military arms you mean nuclear weapons,
Yeah.
then I most certainly am for gun control. But if by gun control you mean the Red Ranger, Army Ranger in the Christmas store, then I am for against gun control.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
And it is fun because it is a fun experiment. What are some of the ones where you find, if you look back, do you think of any ones where you see that happening? The If by Whiskey in your assessment, or people using it with you?
Nah, I mean, you kind of see this on like climate change stuff. Like, well, if by climate change action you mean the taxes that cause hardworking families to have less money in their pocket and destroying the industries and putting undue regulations on companies, then of course I'm against that. But if you mean just taking care of our planet, watching for pollution, preventing people from dumping things in rivers, then of course I'm 100% behind that.
Do you think they use an If by for those goddamn plastic straws? If by
Maybe.
plastic straws you mean You mean these little tubes where you suck juices through and have nutrition, then I'm most for them. However, if you mean plastic straws as shoved up a turtle's nose, then I am most certainly
The
against them.
scourge of the turtle population.
By the way, allegedly they found this
One.
many turtles with a straw in their nose. This many.
Yeah.
One. And the
If
whole
it's
industry
one, it's
changed.
too many.
And what we did was we started what we do. We took plastic straws wrapped in paper and now became paper straws wrapped in plastic.
And to be fair, that turtle was also a cocaine addict, so he had a reason
Totally.
to have that
Right.
straw
Got up
there.
in the 80s. Wasn't it like a Miami Vice turtle, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He had the
if anything,
Crocs
I
and Tubbs jacket.
blame Colombia. It's their fault.
We could blame Argentina again because of the Nazis.
Yeah.
Because allegedly Zach is onto some weird I don't know if he's actually serious about the money stuff. That'd be interesting. So I was going to share. It's funny. Once again, I was going to share an if by here. This is one where it is in pop culture, for example. You guys know this show. It's a very well known show. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Well, America's not perfect.
So America isn't perfect. Is that why you and your son hate us?
If by us you mean loudmouth talk show hosts, which everyone seems to be in this country, then yes, I do hate Americans.
By the way, that's us.
That's us. Yeah.
Literally, you and I.
Yep. Bye.
When I clipped that, I'm like, oh shit, she's talking about us. Hey,
Fat
Aaron's
loud
in. All right.
Hey,
We got. All right. What do we got here, Jason?
Whiskey saves the kids from toothaches. Yeah. How could you be against that? If by whiskey you're going high proof or standard strength, you got to go at least 100 proof. 120 is where it's at, though.
Isn't it 80? Is 80 not the number? 40% alcohol or no?
Yes. But 100,
Oh.
you're getting some good shit. And then the barrel strength around 120 could be a little higher. It's really good. It burns, but once you get used to it, smooth.
Are you a whiskey drinker?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, trying to cut back.
American, Irish, Scotch. Which whiskey? Canadian? Which one would you say you drink?
Mostly bourbon. I go with some rye too, but yeah, American. That's why I made us spell if by whiskey with an E, the American way, not the communist Irish way, like
whoa,
or Scottish.
Don't
way.
talk about me Scottish. Don't talk about me Scottish single malt, you little bastard. I'll tell you, I'll drink my Scottish Scotch the way I want. I'll crush you like a worm. Yeah, I'm a Scotch guy. That's why I did. I did it without the E because I thought it'd be catchy. And then you and Valkyrie, you're like, dude, you didn't spell it with an E, you moron. And I'm like, okay. So
no, she told me that I spelled it wrong. And I'm like, no. And I sent her a screenshot. And I'm like, it's both. It just depends where you are. Depends.
Right. No.
What
when
your
she came to me,
sympathies towards the Communist Party are.
Did she tell you spelled it wrong? Like, you spelled it wrong, Jason.
Yeah, she did.
Well, you know what, though? Everybody's been looking out for us, right? So thank you so much. Because you know what? We do misspell things all the time. So welcome, everybody, to our brand new relaunching, If by Whiskey, moving forward from the previous Consciously Unmasked. What do we have next, my friend?
Zach says he's a cognac guy. That's foul. You're incorrect.
You can't be a cognac guy. That's illegal.
You're incorrect. But yeah, back to the speech. It's just, what else can we say about it? It reminds me of like this H.L. Mencken quote. He wrote this in 1940, but he's talking about politicians. He says that they seldom, if ever, get there by merit alone, at least in democratic states. They are chosen normally for quite different reasons, the chief of which is simply their power to impress and enchant the intellectually underprivileged. And then he goes on, he says, there are problems to be solved, but we train a man for facing them not by locking him up in a monastery and stuffing him with wisdom and virtue, but by turning him loose on the stump If he's a smart and enterprising fellow, which he usually is, he quickly discovers that the hooey pleases the boobs a great deal more than sense. A little bit dated on the language, but it's just, man, if that doesn't describe this speech,
Yep.
I don't know what does. Just
Yeah,
saying
and
some
it's so
nonsense. You
great.
got to get up there and you got to look good. That's really what politics is. You're running a popularity contest. Nobody cares about policy, really.
Totally. It is great. And it's funny because once again, the speech was in 52. He was for it, and it still didn't get passed till 66.
Mm-hmm.
So think about like the power of the speech. I don't know how much the culture was, but like he had a long career even though he was on the side of the thing that was losing at the time, you know? It's kind of
Yeah,
interesting.
33 years also after the 21st Amendment passed, which removed prohibition nationally. So it took a long time.
That's a crazy thing. And it was all those the teetotalers, whatever, the Bible Belt that really pushed for the prohibition, I would assume. So when
Mhm.
it did get instilled, I bet you they were some of the later ones to back out.
Yeah.
And
I
then
just
they had a different age for drinking, right? Like for example, we were in Pennsylvania. You could drive across the bridge to New Jersey and drink at 18. So a lot of
Mhm.
people go across the bridge, drink, get drunk, and get in a car accident, come home. You know, because drinking age is 21 in Pennsylvania, and they didn't make that national drinking age 82, 84, something like that. And it was some highway thing. And once again, the government did it. Well, how? If you didn't agree, we just hold funds from you, from your state.
Mhm.
So it's not like they didn't force you to make the actual thing, but if you didn't comply, you just got punished very badly. So everyone complied.
Yeah. And we know, even though it was a dry state, there's still tons of people drinking.
Oh, it probably made a lot of money. I bet you the money makers probably want to keep it dry. The ones that were selling
Yeah.
it
Oh,
black
yeah,
market.
yeah.
So,
Yes.
you know,
That's a big plus for prohibition for the gangsters. People that are willing to be criminals. They'll make a
yeah.
lot of money because there's
And
a need, there's a want for it, Somebody wants it, somebody will buy it. They'll pay extra because it's illegal now, so it's hard to get.
Yeah, and we were talking about that too, is because we were going to transition that a little bit to the war on drugs and the war on terror, right?
Yeah.
So in the 80s, we get this war on drugs, and then we get these weird, I forget the guy, Mike Ruppert. He suicided himself later, but he's the guy in the LA thing that stands up and he's like, I'm aware of the CIA selling drugs to inner city youth in South Central to fund the black market, the black market ops and all the drug running to fight the war on
Mhm.
drugs. And you're like, whoa, time out. So you're selling drugs to fight the war on drugs? Is that to fund? Is that what I'm hearing? And then you hear about Vietnam, where Vietnam was, the United States government. Did you hear about Ian Carroll? Did you hear Ian Carroll on Joe Rogan?
No.
All right. So even going back to Vietnam, all those kids that got hooked on heroin, the United States government got them hooked on heroin. They sold the heroin to their own soldiers to fund all
Mhm.
those black ops CIA operations that were going on down there, to the point where George H.W. Bush, Herbert Walker, the father, his nickname is Poppy, not because he's a father, but because of the seed of the plant.
Mm.
Hello. Ta-da. And he was the head of the CIA, right? And then he ends up becoming vice president, 1,000 points of light. He's the one that kept
Interesting.
pushing. He's the one that wanted to keep the USSR together in 91 in a weird way. Like, dude, this stuff, you couldn't make this stuff up. Like,
Yeah, plus I'm
everybody has these weird
sure they
agendas,
had to
not just living.
dope up all the soldiers to keep them from going crazy
Yeah.
from seeing all the messed up shit that happened in Vietnam.
Yeah. And they utilize that and they took advantage of that on top of it, right? On top of that,
Mhm.
to hurt everyone was hurt by those things. Everyone's hurt from addiction. That doesn't hurt just the person addicted. It destroys families and everything. These people do not care about us, man. That's why we got to be on our own. We got to do this together. You and me, our group of people, if by whiskey. Let's do it.
Yeah, so the war on drugs goes way back. you could say maybe it started around 1914, where they started with a tax. Very interesting. So they didn't completely outlaw things, but there's this thing called the Harrison Narcotics Act. They taxed and regulated opiates and cocaine. And then in 1937, they had a Marijuana Tax Act, which effectively criminalized weed. I think it was just such a high tax that nobody was willing to buy it. So this has been going on for a long time. And then it was Nixon really that I think he was the first one to use this phrase in the 70s, where he created the DEA. They focused on heroin and marijuana. But because they outlawed these things, they just caused worse things to come into the market. I really think that's true. What do you think?
Yeah. So before we delve too deeply in the drugs, did I skip any parts about prohibition, or did I put the cart before the horse on that?
We'll go back and forth. We can
Okay,
bounce all
cool.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's tangents, man. It's just when thoughts pop into my head. So once again, thank you again for all you joining our new If by Whiskey, everybody. We're gonna have this launching. We're talking about the war on drugs, prohibition. Well, I mean, we have a case in point in the 30s. In the 20s. How did that work out? Criminal organizations grew out of those, and those became the next group of like leaders. The Kennedys came out of prohibition. That's where a lot of their money, their wealth was generated, was during prohibition. So a lot of I call young money would be anything in that era, probably would be anything 100 years or less. That's young money, right? That's where a lot of those things happen. When there's regulations, when there's limits, restrictions, then there's a market to usurp those limits and regulations and restrictions. And that makes for a very profitable business if you can be good at it. And I think removing those things, never having them, removes any incentive to need to have that.
Yeah. If people had their booze, people had their pot, they don't really go to other stuff. I mean, because that's controllable. I mean, people definitely abuse it, but you can kind of, you can have a little bit and you're fine. You'll be all right. So, like, everybody knows about Al Capone, the rise of the organized crime and everything. Speakeasies are an interesting thing. I found this estimate that there were 30,000 or more speakeasies in New York City alone.
30,000.
30,000. And these became like places where, yeah, you can go get your booze illegally, right? But then you're in there, you're like, ooh, what else? What else is going on?
You got your solicitation of people. You've got your human trafficking.
You've got trafficking. Yeah, you've got harder drugs. All these things, they become like a hub because there's illegal activity. You're like, ooh, what else are we willing to do here? What else do people want? So it creates the market for it, which is really interesting.
And then that would even include stupid things like Cuban cigars.
Yeah.
They're back under embargo, right? Like, literally, imagine like the US government literally destroys your life over you having a rolled up piece of tobacco in your pocket.
Because it came from the wrong coordinates on the map. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's crazy, right? Like, we look at like I'm watching the war stuff still with Russia and everything, and they're talking about we need to increase embargo or restriction. You're like, what has that done for you? They've worked around it for 2 fucking years now. You've literally maybe you should have done it all in one shot the first month and just took their legs out from under them, but slowly increasing them has given them ways, to your point, of finding avenues around it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And we don't learn. Jason, we don't learn. We come, like I said, prohibition's one. The petrodollar, the US dollar. We stand on Russia's throat, and Russia, what was it? Russia used to deal with like 70% US petrodollar. Now they're in the 30%, and it's been replaced by ruples and rupees and wins. So it's like we've now screwed ourselves with our tyranny. It's like that clenching of the fist. The more you tighten your fist, the more slip through your fingers.
And it creates violence, all these rival gangs battling each other, fighting it out over control. Because it is an illegal thing, they can't go to the security, they can't go to protect law enforcement or anything, whatever form that would take. But yeah, it just It causes a lot of bad things. And then it doesn't even stop people drinking. So the intention of the law, or prohibition in alcohol specifically, didn't stop people drinking. People still did it. They just did it illegally. And maybe they get, these who knows who's making it. They don't have controls on how safe it is, The California Opium Den Act of 1881. I don't know that one.
If you have a link on that one, Zach, we'll put it up for it. And then you also want to talk about that. Interesting.
Yeah. So I saw a stat that said that initially drinking, the rate dropped by about 30%, but quickly rebounded right back up before prohibition ended. So yeah, it really didn't help.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, so whatever group was the people that were in charge of the prohibition, anyone watch like Boardwalk Empire and look at the good bad guy, right? The guy is ATF, but it wasn't ATF yet, right? It was something else, part of ATF. I think it was like tobacco and alcohol or something. It was whatever. The predecessor. Well, then those guys all need something to do when they get out of that alcohol prohibition. So what do? Oh, we need new enemy. So they make one up. Reefer madness, everybody. Marijuana, cannabis, the thing that's actually calms you down instead of wants you to fight. Like if you had a choice between alcohol and cannabis, honestly, the better choice, the less bad choice was the one they didn't choose, but didn't matter because alcohol was now legal. So we had to find some way to keep these guys get their jobs, keep their foot on, on the public, and keep their criminality down and keep people in check, right? So they had this reefer madness, which was once again a corporate thing by Scripps, the guy who owned all the newspapers, and the guy who owned all the lumber yards for the paper, because hemp you could make into a paper. So they made hemp and marijuana and they combined them, and then they took that ATF and they just switched into this war on drugs after that. And it's time and time again, just watching it down. Like it's that I've been calling it the shell game. We call it the shell game. We just move from one other thing to another topic, and it's like shiny metal objects are everywhere,
And then you get to what happened at Waco, the ATF coming in and, your gun barrel is too short. We better shoot up this whole entire house and light
women
it on
and
fire.
children.
People alive
Don't forget
inside.
setting them on fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. We got individual names. The guy who was who had this gun was on his knees and they kept giving him directions and they kept like confusing him and then just shot him in the back. I forget. Derek, was it Derek somebody, or there's another one that was just recent, like not recent happened, but it was posted recently. I saw, but you get all those interesting stories, the one where they shot the wife and the dog in front of the, like, what the fuck, man? So
Ruby
once
Ridge,
again, takeaway. Government's no fun.
Yeah. So they don't have to completely prohibit it, right? They can also use taxes. We mentioned taxes. The phrase sin tax is out there. That's taxes on cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, now that it's pretty much legalized in most of the country. They use these things as like, well, okay, you're going to do it. We're going to now regulate the industry, and you can only make certain things with certain levels of alcohol or THC or tobacco, and you have to have these filters, and you can't do this and that and this. You can't buy cigars from Cuba. Like, okay, they do these taxes, right? And it's supposed to, like, I guess, dissuade people from using those products, but it doesn't. It just makes them have to spend more. And then it gives money to our government, who goes and bombs Iran or Yemen or whatever the fuck.
Taxes, and they say, well, the taxes are going to protect women and children and to go against anti-drug programs while we sell you drugs. You're like, okay, so this is going to go against. Okay, yeah, right, got it. Yeah, so you're full of shit. I get it now.
It's going to fund the schools.
Right. But it is fun to that point, right? You're saying the syntax, and now where's the syntax on fucking sugary sodas, Jason? It's not just like, do you ever anybody watch Demolition Man? That's a great example of watching a civilization get completely sanitized to become nothing but a sanitary wipe. You know what I'm talking about, right? That movie.
No.
So there's a
Yeah.
movie called Demolition Man with Wesley Snipes is the bad guy and Sylvester Stallone's a good guy. And let me tell you, Jason, I have it on Laserdisc. So screw you, buddy. Yeah, that's right. You don't even know what a Laserdisc is. That's right.
I remember
Anyway,
seeing those.
anyway, it's in the future, and basically, it's very sterile. It's just no one's allowed to curse. You get a demerit or a credit charged if you say the F word or whatever. So basically, they try to tax your behavior. You cannot tax behavior, people. You cannot do it. It does not work. People are going to do what they do. Your face looks your screen just went out.
Oh, hello. Can you see me?
No. I mean, it went like from bright to dark on your face.
Oh, weird.
I know you were
Is it still
watching
dark?
something or something. No, you're
Oh.
good. Yeah, I think you had something on your laptop you were watching or something. I don't know.
Oh,
Look
I was
brighter.
trying to find that California opium den thing.
Oh, okay, got it.
But
Yeah,
Grok
if you
is
happen to
being-
let me know, I can put it up there. But let me see. Can I do that? No. I can't copy and paste, I don't think.
1875, San Francisco enacted the nation's first anti-drug law, an ordinance banning opium dens, which were establishments where opium was sold and smoked. This is not 1881, so somebody's lying. I'll say Google.
Yeah, sure. It's always a gooks.
Yeah.
It's always a gooks. So yeah, so the syntax is so interesting because, and what's interesting in Arizona, if you have a medical license for cannabis, it's about $300 for every 2 years. However, you only pay the sales tax in the city you're in. But if you don't have a medical and and you also get access to different different products. But if you have a recreational car, if you have recreation, you just walk into a place, you can do that in Arizona now. You pay an extra 16%.
Ugh.
So for example, Tempe, not that I would know, you would pay 24.3% tax on recreational cannabis.
Yeah, and of course, if you try to create your own market and say, "Hey, I'm not paying these taxes," they're going to come for you. They're not letting you do that.
Also, on the medical card, it says you can't grow your own. So there's your point. They're making money either way, right? That's my point. They monetize this stuff. They monetize your behavior, but they don't give a shit about behavior. Look at their behavior.
Yeah.
It's silly. It's so silly.
Yeah, I mean, the people making these laws are out there doing the same things, doing coke and drinking and smoking pot. They're all doing it.
Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi were not wearing their masks. We have video footage of it.
Right. They don't care. Yes.
They do not
Anytime you see something like this, you know they don't care about it. They want to figure out how to control you and how to make more money. Those are the two big ones.
That's it,
And
man.
all this prohibition stuff ties back to some really deep, like, racist stuff, because the reason they targeted the opium and the cocaine is because they wanted to target the Chinese people and South Americans or Latin Americans. So there's a very deep racial tie to the prohibition stuff, and we do see it, how it plays out in which populations are more imprisoned, because I don't believe that Black people are more prone to do drugs than white people, but a lot more of them are in prison for it.
Great point. So I was going to mention that too, but I didn't want to sound like a racist prick. But yeah, the opium was clearly against Chinese. I'm trying to show I'm a little ignorant because I'm an East Coast guy, so I'm not very familiar with how the West. Like, I'm familiar with how the West was built and grew or everything. But obviously there was a lot of Chinese immigrants for the railroad expansions, correct? A lot of Chinese, like, workers and stuff. And I'm assuming it must have been right around that time, 1800, like 1850, 1880, trained, like, that's high labor. Those guys were probably working and just doing dope and working. That's probably all they were doing, is just getting through the day, right? Working their asses off, literally fingers to the bone, right? So to your point, well, let's go back to the war on drugs, 1991 or whatever. We get this war on drugs, a 3-strike rule, right? Then we get the war, the gun crime law, the 1991 assault weapon ban, right? So this disproportionately hurt these affected people. Once again, to your point, Black people, African American, I don't know the term, people of color. Let's see. Cocaine had a different like term to it than crack. Crack had like a 10 times the criminality attached to it than coke. Well, rich people could do coke, poor people did crack. So who is it going to affect disproportionately if the criminality leans against the people who can't afford it? They can't even afford the representation. They can't afford the higher drug to get them out of the problem, you know, the bigger crime problem. I mean, it just exacerbates, right? And then you throw these guys, the industry, the military, or the prison industry complex, right? Joe Biden was suing New Jersey to keep an immigrant prison open because they get paid per person. You don't think he gets a kickback? Come on. He's been in the pocket of crime with his cool crime bills in the 90s. It's all smoke and mirrors, everybody. They do not care about you. They do not want this. They don't want it to be safe. They just want people imprisoned, and they want us to blame each other for it.
Yeah, and they they are racist. Going back to early 1900s, all the presidents were like openly racist. Woodrow Wilson, FDR, you want to like talk about the worst of the progressive era, were also very openly white supremacists.
Jim Crow, Southern Democrats were the absolute fucking worst. Lyndon Johnson. I mean, come on, man. That dude literally was like not a good dude. So
yeah, but I mean, they work. They can pass these bills to do the sin tax because people are like, oh yeah, well, I don't, you know, if people are doing drugs, then they should pay more. They should, you know, pay more for our social services or whatever. Like, so they pass because people don't care that much. I don't know.
Well, I think they pass because they spin it probably in an if by way.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You got some the people are, you know, are for something. They can spin it to the point it's like, and first of all, let's be honest, everything's for the children or your safety. Those are your two go-tos for every government tyranny you could ever do is for the children, for your safety, Patriot Act and Internet Safety Act and all the come on, no, they just utilize those words against us, man. Yeah, it's just one of those things. All right.
Yeah, I mean, they've continued it into the 90s with Clinton, the 94 crime bill that became a big talking point. You know, not just drugs, but just kind of harassing people in the streets.
Yeah.
Not a great thing. Put a lot more people in prison. We have way more people in prison than any other country per capita, I think. And they've spent a ton of money trying to stop it, but then they go behind the scenes and run the drugs in the background. So I think they just want to control the market. That's really it. They don't want people to have freedom. Yeah. It's all about the freedom.
And it is industry because Kamala was withholding the evidence from people who could get off of crimes and even said, we have a labor shortage if we don't extend these people's sentences. I mean, to argue for prison extension, not for reform's sake, not like, hey, this guy's onto something. He's like 90% through a program. If we just keep him in prison another month, like he'll finish the program or graduate out or something. No, not like that. Nothing like that. It's we need them in there longer so we can use their labor like a little piece of shit slave. It's disgusting to watch that and to watch that unfold and hear that. Like, no wonder I remember growing up and having those biases, having those disgust bias. Oh, these people are so criminals. Why are they all criminals? And why? And I don't mean they like like race, but like poor people or like the city folk, you know what I mean? Or however they deem the people, right? These bad guys are so bad. I mean, we had a mafia problem, which was a big white problem back on the East Coast, by the way, just so you know. It was not a black person of color problem. So like it is weird though,
because
right?
They made being poor a crime. They started the war on poverty.
So, all right. So this is a great question with Justin. Before we get into that, there is a question about that because once again, we were talking about how they're criminalizing those drug use so that they can keep that power, right?
Mhm.
And you were even talking about 16% tax. So on $100, you're spending 16 extra dollars. So like, yeah, their coffers are overflowing with money. And for what though? Where's it going? Oh, it's earmarked for something, right? Like that would be another thing. We
Mhm.
could have some transparency. So
Yeah, you're
what are
marked
your
for
thoughts on
my
this one,
pocket.
Jason? Go ahead and Justin just
I
jumped on.
believe that all drugs should be legal for adults. Yes, I do. And it's not that I support drugs. It's that what we've been talking about, prohibition actually makes it worse. And so, yes, there's going to be problems. That's not a great solution. I understand. Um, but like we can talk about the FDA. The FDA was created to try to stop these, try to make sure that we have safe drugs, safe pharmaceutical options for this. But they created the problems that they were trying to stop, right? The opioid crisis. Purdue Pharma caused the opioid crisis, and they hid data that they knew people would get very addicted to these things. Created the
Right.
fentanyl crisis, and now that's made overseas in China and I think Mexico are the two main sources for fentanyl. But it caused people to become addicted to these things, and they probably wouldn't. We probably wouldn't have got there. Maybe we would, but not so fast if the government didn't step in and create these problems. So it's a tough situation, if everything was legal, you could just go to your grocery store and buy whatever you want. You can buy heroin, you can buy meth. There's going to be a lot of people that will do it, and it's not going to be good. But that happens now. It happens now. So I don't know. What are your thoughts, man?
It is one of the best questions to ask because it is almost like the border question. Like, because it's like an all or nothing. Are you a 1 or a 0 on this, right? If gun to my head, I'd rather legalize every drug than make every drug illegal.
Mhm.
So I don't know if by
If by legal, if by legal, do you mean people will roam the streets,
right.
drug addled, attacking children, leaving their dirty needles and spreading AIDS everywhere? Then of course I'm against that.
Of course I'm against it. So the thing is, growing up, I would say I was against all drugs. I was a pretty straight edge kid, not because I was like I just grew up straight edge. Everyone drank. Like, don't get me wrong. Probably all the German people around me were alcoholics. Not my parents or anything, but like there were a lot of alcoholic Germans. A lot of them actually fought in the World War II on the German side. Like, let's not get ourselves. So we had some guys who had some stuff to bury. Okay, let's
Try to
not kid
forget.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So that was going on, but any drugs we were always like disgust, like anything that wasn't like in line. And I remember them handing around crack rock around, like the
Mhm.
police brought it in one time to like our PE class, health class. I remember passing around, just touching it. I got that butterfly, like, oh my God, I'm gonna die because it's illegal. Like, because I was very much into order and very much into that whole thing. But clearly, I've always been a defiant person, but always been orderly. Never really a lawbreaker. Just I like razzing. Now I'm like, fuck, I'm still a law-abiding citizen, but fuck those lawmakers and the
Mhm.
people stomping on our necks enforcing those laws because
Yeah.
it's bullshit. So I've really come around full. I can say that I think I was wrong in my thinking that all this stuff should be cocaine. It should all be legal. And I do think this would happen. There would be a 6 month to 1 year overcorrection where it'd be a thinning of the herd. I hate to say it. Some
Mhm.
people with super addictive personalities are going to get super hooked, but I think they're already on it anyway. If they're going to get that hook, it's not. I do not think that these limits, like outside of marijuana, would be to the point where it's like they're already addictive. People who know they're addictive going in, who don't have addictive issues, don't generally even think about it. They don't consider it. So
Mhm.
I would think that there would be a spike of issues, but it would be actually very quickly resolved just like economy, if we would stay out of the economy, you know how it resolves itself? I feel like it would resolve itself. You'd start metering your understanding of how much you can take or what you can do. And once again, it doesn't absolve you of a crime you commit while you're under the influence of a drug. I mean, we have crimes that are against alcohol. So if you drink and drive, if you take drugs and you do something horrific, that's has a penalty already with it, right? It's not the drug, it's the person who acted on all as a whole on that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I mean, if meth were suddenly legal, you could go down to the QT on the corner and pick up some meth. Are you doing it? You're gonna try it?
No, I'm not, but but I could see you do it. But this is the point. I do think initially there might be people who try it. There might be like you're gonna have fringes of people who are like, okay, it's legal now, I'm gonna try it. You've got people who are like, I'll never try it. You've got people who, regardless of whether it's legal or not, are doing it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But to be honest, I honestly think that this would clean it up because if you had independent companies, you'd have reviews like a Yelp system for every drug. No company would want to put shit in their product because if it had an adverse effect, no one would buy that product. Like, honestly, you could even do this where you can make it. Go ahead and make your drug. If you like, obviously killing someone, you would have some kind of like associated murder charge with that, even if it's third degree or something. But if you want to make drugs and they get sick, then they stop taking it. So you're out of business. So it behooves you to not make a bad product, you know? It's funny how we
Mhm.
talk about regulations and how they protect us, but it seems to actually hide the corporation's ability to tell us what's in their stuff or hide other things, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah. They have to be sneaky or not do it at all. So then you're getting stuff off the street, and who knows what's in that. That's kind of the situation. And then legality is another issue because okay, let's say it's illegal. What's the punishment? Right? What are we doing to people? Should somebody be locked up because they had a joint? Like, I do not agree with that.
Right. And the three strikes, what was the one? Who was the gentleman who taught himself how to read? He was Rogan and Ian Carroll talked about it, but as a guy, he got all three strikes in one instance. Like, so they were even misapplying the law. You know what I mean? And once again, not only that, we're human. So you've got all the way through the chain from the lawmaker to the judge to the applier to the administrator, executor to all the way down to the police officer,
Mhm.
all have a different life, different experience, different perception of their interpretation of a law, perhaps, right? So you get this guy who gets in the system and is now a criminal, but he never should have been in the first place. And he can't get
Mhm.
out. He just can't get out because he's in that thing. He can't get a job because he was a criminal. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's like the Franklin thing. I'd rather have one guy, is guilty go free than 100, or one innocent, 100 guilty go free than one innocent be convicted. I would err on the side of humanity in this case because we're all fallible and we should have a little more grace with each other.
Yeah, for sure. But then if you get somebody addicted early, like Justin says here, what group do you think would be most likely to try? Probably young adults because that's when we all try things. But
And I
now
would say young men also.
it's the things that are extremely addictive. Not all, but some. So yes, that's a risk.
Now we can equate this to alcohol in Europe. Okay. So why do we have such a taboo thing with alcohol? Because we can't drink till 21. But in Europe,
Mhm.
it's not a thing. Like there's no taboo behind it. A kid might have a sip or a half a glass or a quarter glass at 16 or 18 and they don't drive till 18. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Mhm.
reversed, So like
That's a good point.
I'm right. So I do think and to Justin's
It's
point,
like
I think those questions are correct, but I do think that we've seen historically it resolve itself where the taboo goes away and over time it's just not an issue. But
yeah, you could look at what happened with weed. Like I think I actually don't know what the stats are, but do you think more people smoke weed now that it's legal? Are they suddenly like
100%.
was that holding them back? I don't know.
I will say 100% yes.
Yeah.
I can say I'm one of those people. Um And what I can tell you is this, though, cannabis has less effect than alcohol. It
Mhm.
makes you want to chill out. want to hang out. It does not make you want to get in a car and go crazy and get liquid courage. It gives you maybe a little bit of hunger, maybe a little bit of creativity. You get the tingles, you wake up, no hangover. So, okay. All right, great. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just telling you that's how the effects of one side versus the other. The other side, you get braggadocious, you lose inhibitions. Like it's a different kind of thing. Which one's better? That's for you to decide, but they shouldn't be, neither should be illegal. But I can guarantee when cannabis was illegal, I wouldn't even consider it because it's not worth. Like, I didn't know what it gave me because I never took it, but like it wouldn't be worth any risk of any jail time for me. That's just me.
Yeah.
But the second it was medical, I actually went for a medical license because I'm like, I think this would benefit my joints and all those things. So I did definitely, once the legality was there, I was able to go with it.
Yeah, for sure. There's something about it being illegal that just makes you want to do it. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now that it's legal, I'm like, fuck, I don't care. I don't want it.
Yeah, and once again, I was going to be a pilot. So like when I went to college, just imagine a DUI, you're not a pilot anymore and you just spend all that money. You know what I mean? Like, so I had very high there was a very risk reward thing going on in my head at all times. So it wasn't like if I didn't choose that initially, maybe I'd have a different mindset about that because I knew that would be a career ruiner, if that makes sense. For what I wanted to do.
For sure. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think
Zach
overall,
likes heroin, apparently.
Drugs are bad. Okay. South Park, good reference.
Excellent reference.
Justin says it's a tough one for me. General rule for me is government should stay out of our choices, but for things that are extremely addictive and destructive like heroin, it's tough for me to give it a pass. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, but I can also tell you some of the most creative artists, they do not impact none of their actions impact my life. And they're heroin addicts. But they bring beautiful art, music, and whatever. It's like I look at Scott Weiland, Stone Temple Pilots, and I look at Alice in Chains. You look at all these musicians. I mean, I'm not Kurt Cobain, but like how many OD'd? How many OD'd on heroin? It opened up their mind. Now it gave us a short glimpse into that world in a weird way, because I think it did open that creativity. But there's a cost. And some people will pay that price. But that's like, I want to drive fast. So what? I don't do drugs, but I like to drive 90 instead of 45. Well, that's probably more dangerous. I'd argue, right? Like there's speed limits. I mean, we could take this all the way down the road of like, where do those limits really happen and where those restrictions actually save lives or protect people.
Yeah. For me, I get Justin's point. I agree. I don't want people to have easy access to that stuff. But then when you get into regulations, you're expanding the conversation to who is in charge of it, who has enforcement power, and you get into some really sticky things. You get into government bullshit shenanigans that I'm not okay with. So if it was up to me, I think legalization is the way. Totally understand people have other ideas about that, but I don't want any government. So that's where I line up on that.
If by legalization you mean only good people will get the drugs and we'll all dance and smile in circles, then I'm all for it. But if by legalization you mean everyone possible, including the riffraff and the bad guys, get it, then I'm just not for it, Jason.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man. So anything else on the war on drugs, sir?
The war on drugs is a failure. Actually, it depends on what the intention of it was. I don't think the intention was actually to help people. I think it was to control markets.
100%. So we have a couple If by Whiskey still want to share, because we got a couple people here. Thank you again for spending your Monday evening with us, guys. We are rebranding. Jason is down there, right there. Hello, I'm Mark. I'm over here. That's Jason. And we are If by Whiskey. And we've been sharing some If by Whiskey things. People who jumped on late, please go back in time and go to the front of this. We shared the speech. Jason broke down exactly where that came into his mind, and it's an awesome idea. So here's one from Frasier that I thought I'd share, and then we have one more from Pulp Fiction, but we still have a little more chit-chatting to do before we call it a night.
Believe me, nothing would make me happier than discovering a legitimate psychic.
Oh, so you've never found one?
Well, if by psychic you mean people with above normal prescience, then a few. If you mean somebody who can beat the house in Vegas, then no.
There's a weird example of that. So anyway, so there's one from the Frasier. Speaking of psychics, telepathy tapes, have you gotten into them yet?
Not yet. I have no time.
I'm gonna keep pushing, man. I'm gonna keep pushing. So
yeah, man.
Whoa. All right, what do we have here? Oh, hold on. I want to go back. Hold on. I want to go back here. Vices aren't crimes. Okay. So are you familiar with that? Was it a Spooner that wrote that?
I don't know where it started, but yeah, it's a pretty popular thing.
I think it was Spooner. I think because Zach was going to talk about it. So Jack, if you want to put down who wrote that, I think it's a book, right? Vices are not crimes. So that's a really interesting one and then Zach, I'll try to connect you and Justin after so that you can give them I think you did a couple episodes on the crime stuff. So it'd be kind of interesting. So
yeah.
So that's a good question.
That one with Matthew Sands, we talked about that a little bit, how basically the non-aggression principle is kind of the basis for criminality. And if a crime really has to involve aggressing against someone, and simply doing drugs does not aggress on anybody. What you do under the influence of the drugs could be an aggressive act. So, yes, things should be crimes, but then you get into enforcement again. Who's doing it? I think it should be privatized. Legacy, right? Zach makes a good point down there too. Legalization leads to regulation and monopoly building. So, yeah, good point. By legalization, I mean removing any restrictions on it. I don't mean like how they did with marijuana, where it's like, you must get this license now, you must pay taxes on it. No, just leave it open.
Yes. And once again, Zach did confirm it is Spooner, and criminality involves a victim, to your point. So here's another example. Sex work. I'm out on a business trip in Washington, D.C., and some woman approaches me in a bar, and she tells me that I get paid, she gets paid to do stuff, and if I'd be interested. I take her back and we do our thing. Now, outside of that, who's affected? We have two consenting adults exchanging a service for a fee. Now, if she has a pimp and she was sex trafficked, that's already illegal. So like that part of it is the illegal part. That's the criminal part, but that has nothing to do with the exchange that those two people had in the hotel room. Because there was no victim in that portion of that act, for example.
Yeah, right.
And
hey,
incels too.
I actually got to wrap up pretty soon here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. So do we want to transfer real quick about the war on terror at all, or anything? How we transfer, like we see war on drugs, war on alcohol, the war on terror. All these things are failed things. And now we're combining the war on drugs with the war on terror on our southern border. Any thoughts about that?
You talking about designating the cartels as terror organizations? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah. All right.
It's dumb. If you want to go take them out, go do it, I guess.
Yeah. I hear you, man. No, privatize like prison, privatize like I think you mean police force being privatized, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Justin, it's a rabbit hole, man. We can definitely go down that.
Yeah.
You want to put that one on the list we'll talk about privatization of stuff maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Sex workers are helping incels. Oh, come on. Zach's being Zach, a maniac. All right. I have to share this Pulp Fiction before we go, and then we'll have a couple final thoughts here.
See, this business is filled to the brim with unrealistic motherfuckers. Motherfuckers who thought their ass would age like wine. If you mean it turns to vinegar, it does. If you mean it gets better with age, it don't.
Don't.
It don't. Vin Rains, man. One of my favorites.
Yeah, War on Terror, you can follow the same logic. We try to go fight some terrorists. That creates 20 more terrorists each time we kill one, and more and more and more until it's the whole country against us.
Whose math is that? Well, I forget the general's math. It's Scott Horton talks about all the time, but it's what's 10 minus 2? 20.
Yeah,
That's literally,
right.
that's literally what it is, and it's named after a famous general.
And you got to ask why those people feel the need to resort to terrorism in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, it is to think that it's just these bad group of people inside this other group of people that's just how it is. Like that there's no context of how that got to be. Like
They're just like,
oh yeah, these are bad guys. They're just
they
bad
just
guys.
hate America for no reason.
Right.
They picked up a copy of the Declaration of Independence, and they're just like, "What is this? This
how
is
dare
evil.
they want freedom in their country? They're not even near us. We can't even get over there without paddling our fucking wooden boat.
They hate us for our freedoms.
Hate us for our freedoms. Mission accomplished. The Chinese. Anyway, so do we have any Trumps? Have you worked on your Trump at all?
I feel like I'm off my game today, man. I'll save it for next time.
All right, cool. Because we need a terrorist Trump. Because there's he's talking all kinds of crazy smack. What?
Going for a third term.
Oh yeah, the third term on top of it. Yeah, I heard about that today. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Steve Bannon. What? Who? How? I can't. All right, that wasn't a sentence. I know, but I said like a million things in that little thing in my head.
And where and why?
Steve Bannon does. I don't understand Steve Bannon. There's something about that guy that's not. It's just he might not be like totally their bad guy, but he's not like really a good guy either.
Yeah,
I know.
I don't know about that dude. Never liked him.
Well, did you ever see the Eco Biosphere 2 or whatever with him? He ended up buying the second one. I'll share the documentary with you. So, all right. Well, everyone, this has been the inaugural If by Whiskey. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Laura for inviting me this weekend. And next time Jason's going to go to this cool party. It's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you for putting us number 3 on FeedSpot for that. And Jason, welcome to our little collaboration, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congrats on number 3, man.
Oh, thank you. I
don't know
really
who put
do.
You on the list.
You
Who's
helped.
in charge of it.
You helped. You definitely. It was you, Zach, Sean, everybody, Jacob, and Andrew. Everybody really pitched in, and we've all been working together and trying to collaborate and do stuff. Ooh, there we go. Sir, before we call it an evening, you have any final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thanks. I feel like I was a little off today, but next time's going to be better. I'll bring Trump back.
All right. Hey, you know what? We do have off days. Sometimes this does happen. We all have these things where thank you for pushing yourself through, even if you were feeling a little off. I didn't even know. So thanks for faking it till you made it.
I tried.
I appreciate it.
It went okay.
Everyone, thank you very much. Eyes Wide Shut party at Justin's house. He's going to give out the address pretty soon. Everybody get a mask. Because we don't have masks anymore. We dropped the mask. We unconsciously masked, and now we are If by Whiskey, everybody.
If by Whiskey.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night. Take care, Jason. We'll talk offline, my friend. Take care, everybody.